This article claims that autistic adults never belong on sex offender registries. I can't help but feel skeptical. Autism. Tropical rainforest. Hey, you, tropical rainforest. Thank you for your post at r/autism. Our rules can be found here. https www.reddit.com/r/autism/wiki/config/sidebar. All approved posts get this message. If you do not see your post, you can message the moderators. Here. https www.reddit.com/message/compose 2=%2fr%2fautism. Thanks. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose 2=r/autism if you have any questions or concerns. Auto moderator 1. Wow, that article is dripping in bigotry disguised as concern. And defending CP. What about absolutely nauseating red on so many levels? Doktor 9. 1. Greater than escalating punishments for downloading child pornography. Years in prison. A lifetime on the sex registry. Are fueled by the pervasive belief that someone who views depictions of child sex abuse must also be capable of sexually abusing a child. But autism clinicians say people on the spectrum lack the ability to manipulate or groom a child for abuse. XA0, so basically they saying that because they would have difficulty doing the crime. Compared to an NT, they harmless? I don't buy that one bit. Greater than, she called me and told me about the test results. And I asked, well, what does that mean? His mom said, and she said, it means his brain works like a computer. Nice. We redoing autism stereotypes greatest hits. Greater than a recent study by the U.S. Sentencing Commission tracked hundreds of offenders for 8.5 years after their release and found that only 3.6% were subsequently arrested for or convicted of a sexual contact offense such as rape or sexual assault of a minor or adult. The Commission cautions that these numbers likely underestimate the number of contact offenses, as child sex abuse is severely underreported. But the results, which are reflected in other recent studies, challenge the assumption of danger that drives these prosecutions. Greater than Joseph understands that people assume men like him are predators who could physically harm a child. But pornography, he said, does the opposite. It provides an escape from reality. It was, for him, a substitute for human interaction. This is straight up arguing that CP shouldn't be criminal. Honestly, this reads sort of like some sort of 4chan incel diatribe trying to normalize child pornography and portray autistic offenders as harmless small beans. Avincio. 1. What a disgusting article in more than a few ways. Rose TBD. 1. Whoever wrote that needs to be investigated. Puzzled Delivery 242. 1. I was groomed and sexually abused as a child by a man. I thought he loved me and he destroyed me. When I finally left, he stalked me off and on for years. I was terrified of him. That man was then prosecuted for having hundreds of thousands of images of child sex abuse on his computer of the very worst categories. It was the worst the investigators had ever seen. He was found guilty but escaped a jail term because his lawyer successfully argued that he was autistic and his autism was highly relevant to his crime and that it was actually a symptom of his autism and collecting. He escaped a jail term and instead was just on the sex offender registry for 10 years. The first thing he did when he got off the registry and no longer had a supervision order was contact me. His victim with PTSD whose life he destroyed not to apologize either. The idea that he could have also escaped being on sex offender registry at all and could have been free to just carry on as he was, which he absolutely would have done, is truly terrifying to me. The only thing that stopped his offending was being on that register, proved by him going right back to it as soon as he got off. Guess who's also autistic? Me. And this man absolutely destroyed my life. He absolutely knows right from wrong, and it is absolutely nothing to do with his autism. Even if you go through all the mental gymnastics to decide his autism was relevant, the only thing that stopped him and kept other children safe was him being on the register and not being able to use the internet due to the supervision order. The sex offender registry isn't just about punishment, it's also about keeping people safe. I haven't even got words for how I feel about articles like this. Butterfly L. 1. If they check the boxes for being a pedophile, they're a pedophile. Loser_GMAS. 1. Isn't the purpose of the sex offender registry protection of victims rather than punishment of the offender? How relevant is culpability? Quote, Ebola returns. 1. Do most autistics tend to be less xenophobic than the general population? Autism. Proud_autistic. Hey, you, proud_autistic. Thank you for your post at r/autism. Our rules can be found here. https://www.reddit.com/r/autism/wiki/config/sidebar. All approved posts get this message. If you do not see your post, you can message the moderators here. https www.reddit.com/message/compose 2=%2fr%2fautism. Thanks. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose 2=r/autism if you have any questions or concerns. Auto moderator 1. For me, I may act like I am part of a group, but I never actually feel it or believe it. It's typically in-group bias that drives a lot of this discrimination, racism, etc. So it would make sense that those of us who are less likely to feel like they truly belong to a group would be less likely to embrace these sorts of in-group biases. Just a regular God. 1. I think we should generally be cautious making such generalizations because it creates in our minds the idea that autism is this cohesive group of individuals that think, are a certain way. For example, although I know most autistic people online tend to be more progressive. For example, lots of us that interact with the autistic online community are queer. I don't think this is necessarily the case for people that are not online as much. In the sense that a lot of the autistic people that do not have as much of a strong presence online might be less open. I feel that the autistic community online can be a bit of an echo chamber. Not in a bad way. And that warps our perception of reality. I think autistic people, like everyone else really, we tend to really stick to our beliefs and apply logic from our very subjective perspective. Autistic people can be very bigoted too, is my point. In my case, I think I am as least of a xenophobe as I can be, while also recognizing that, as a white Westerner, I can have certain unconscious biases that I will always try to go against when I realize I have them. I don't know if being autistic has determined my progressive and radical views on social issues, but I do think it has perhaps influenced my gender identity. Arbitrios. 1. My dad is autistic, with many of the classic markers: echolalia, social anxiety, lack of eye contact, special interests, meltdowns, etc. I knew more than 10 racist slurs by age 5 because of him. I would be cautious about overgeneralizing. Okra_tomatoes. 1. I can only speak about myself. But I've never understood why people hate other races or cultures. I've always loved other kinds of people and learning about them. When I was a young teen, I thought something was wrong with me because I had a crush on someone who was a different race, but my parents were super racist. Now I see that they were just ignorant. Highest velocity. 1. Never heard of this. My dad is also autistic and a raging racist. I don't think a developmental disability makes anyone more or less xenophobic or racist. Coffin_birthday_cake. 1. There's plenty of shitty autistic people. Same as any other group. I wouldn't trust someone just because of one aspect of their identity. Trashy sneakers. 1. There are definitely tons of hateful autistic people. Racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, homophobic, etc. Even if we are less prone to that kind of hatred, we certainly aren't exempt from the thought processes that lead to it. Not by virtue of our autism. At least there are sadly a lot of autistic incels and white supremacists. Although I don't know about xenophobia in the absence of racial differences. We could be less prone to xenophobia, that is just about differences in cultural norms. So I'd be very interested to see that studied. There are some studies have shown that autistic people aren't any less impacted by implicit biases than allistic people. Nor are we different in our face processing to own race faces versus other race faces. These studies could definitely use more replication, but the underlying causes behind subconscious racial othering appear to be intact in autistic populations. People with Williams syndrome are a population with a statistically significant lack of implicit biases around race, although they do still have them around gender. You also have to think about how rigid making maps that lead some of us towards highly social justice-oriented values can just as easily lead others towards fascistic and eugenicist values that they believe to just be the only logical way to view things. Not all of our meaning-making maps are so rigid, but being prone to extreme black and white thinking can make people more vulnerable to prejudice, especially if they raised with it. These rigid maps can also come with an intense, this is the one best right way to do this mentality, which would definitely make someone vulnerable to xenophobic prejudice even if the only difference is cultural. I also would be curious to see a study if we more likely to claim we not prejudiced, or if we actually more likely to recognize our own implicit biases. My guess would be purely based on anecdotal experience. Generally, I believe anyone who falls into the trap of thinking that social issues are just about whether you look at them logically is going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to understanding and addressing said issues. But thankfully it's a trap we can crawl out of. I definitely used to be in that trap when I was a kid. And there are still times I catch myself taking the easy way out by going down that overly simplistic line of thinking. When that happens, I have to remind myself that even if that way of thinking makes me more comfortable, hence why it's easy to fall into, it limits me. Roadside chicory. 1. Why isn't there a dating, friendship app for neurodivergent people? Or is it? Autism. Proud Relationship 724. Hey, you, Proud Relationship 724. Thank you for your post at our autism. Our rules can be found here. https www.reddit.com/r/autism/wiki/config/sidebar. All approved posts get this message. If you do not see your post, you can message the moderators here. https www.reddit.com/message/compose 2=%2fr%2fautism. Thanks. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose 2=r autism if you have any questions or concerns. Auto moderator. 1. There is one. It's called Hiki, but it's not widely used. Sonoran Sage Coaching, 1. Hiki, but nobody really uses it. Administrative Ad 197, 1. I do techie stuff in NGL. This is probably the app proposal I hear the most from people. OMG, we should do a dating app to serve this small community of people with very specific needs. It never works because of the very important word less than small greater than. Dating apps only work when the population using them is enormous. And even then they barely work. Hookup apps can do okay. Like Grindr. But when I ask if that is what people meant, they tend to recoil from me in horror. Subtle Cow. 1. Hiki, it is great. Everyone lives 3,000 miles away from you or you are ghosted. Feels even more awesome when it happens from a fellow autistic person. I deleted that trash app after a week. Hoshkar. 1. There is, it's my private messages. Spooler 32, 1. I had an app like this thought up about in my mind a lot. The app would basically be a combination of Reddit and Discord. You can join groups. You can enter certain categories and topics, all containing 24/7 live chat rooms, as well as the ability to make smaller or private chat rooms on your profile. You can choose which categories, topics, or groups are of most interest to you. These will all be marked with a star icon and they will show up on your profile for anyone to see. If they tap your profile and view it, you can hide your favorites, but it's best to keep your favorites public so that other neurodiverse users can find out if you relate to them or not. The Friends List tab can be sort by most relevant, and the app will find users which share very similar interests to you, maximizing the ease of making friendships or relationships. The app will also have voice chat rooms alongside the public text chat rooms and the voice chat rooms can also be created to be private or public with a certain user limit. The chat room owner of a private or public room can control who and who can't speak at a certain time. They can also set it to where people can talk for X amount of time before the next person in line is able to speak. This could be perfect for debate chat rooms or common interest chat rooms. The best part of the app, I think, would be the ability to customize absolutely everything. You can rearrange the UI to fit perfectly with your preference. You can also scroll through a list of pre-made available UIs from corresponding previous versions, so that you can keep the UI that you love best. Your feed's background can also be customized with animated wallpapers or custom wallpapers uploaded via file camera. The buttons can also have their textures customized and can even have their effects customized when you click them. An example of this would be a button could inflate like a balloon when you click it. There will also be background ambience effects such as rain, snow, and custom ones which can be downloaded for free or for cheap prices on a built-in community store. In the community store, you can sort by most relevant so you can see creators whom share the same interests with you, and you're more likely to find more appealing ambience effects. There will also be an option to make on-screen ambience effects such as lighting to go with the rain ambience. This is just my idea of an app which can help neurodiverse people from all over the world connect with each other. K-Light 101. 1. There's supposed to be an app called Spoony that should be released eventually. It was supposed to be a dating app, but they decided to make it a friendship app for people who are neurodivergent or have disabilities. Someone named Connor Kallick is in the works of developing it. United Emotion 3908. 1. Who else spoke in formal way when he was a kid? Autism, Hamza 2579. Hey, you, Hamza 2579. Thank you for your post at r/autism. Our rules can be found here. https www.reddit.com/r/autism/wiki/config/sidebar All approved posts get this message. If you do not see your post, you can message the moderators. Here, https www.reddit.com/message/compose 2 equals %2fr%2 fadism. Thanks. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose 2 equals r autism if you have any questions or concerns. Auto moderator 1. Yes. As a kid I was obsessed with formal speech. Now I talk a lot more normal though. Necrolancer NL 1. I did, and to a point still do. I don't care for most slang, and have to use correct grammar and punctuation. People who don't do those things drive me crazy. Immutable 1E 1. Yep. My mom and dad used to poke fun at me for sounding posh. Where did you pick that up from? They'd ask. And then they would repeat the word or sentence back to me. In an overly posh way. I still get laughed at now for talking formally. But it's generally a good banter with colleagues. In fact, they make me laugh, too, when I realize what I've said. XA 0 inches. Historical _arm 15. 1. Yup. This one time when I was a kid and my mom asked me if I was hungry, I responded, "No, Mom, I am not hungry. Hungry is for those who suffer from hunger. What I do have is an appetite." It might sound a little bit clunky, but it's because the actual conversation happened in Spanish. Arbitrios 1. I did and still do. I also grew up bilingual. Initially I referred to myself in the third person, and I was unaware that not everyone also spoke Italian for a year or two. Not quite right too. 1. Mum's favorite story. I was in the double buggy with my brother. Just a toddler still. An old lady bent down and cooed at me. I looked her in the eye and said clearly and directly, "Why are you talking to me in a strange voice?" Quote, NITSIRK. 1. Years of masking have mostly fixed that. But I still occasionally speak like a grammar book taught us to write XA0IE properly. Damn it, XA0 lol. Platypus God. 1.